Today on Paint a Beautiful Picture, we're going to talk about nurturing tenacity. This is episode number 144, and I'm so glad to have you with me. This week we've talked about challenges and obstacles and difficulties. And you know what? Sometimes it takes plain old tenacity. I mean, not only the desire to stick to it, but the absolute determination in your gut that no matter what, this is going to happen. Tenacity is what it takes to run a marathon. I promise you, I can't imagine running a marathon. First of all, 3 times I've torn the meniscus in my knees, and so my knees hurt. Second of all, I need a knee replacement. And third of all, I have arthritis. So running is not my sport of choice. That's why I'm going to use it for you. Someone who decides they're going to run a marathon, they've got to have tenacity. They've got to have it. Because you hit a point, and I've known a couple of people that ran marathons quite well, and I've definitely read about them because I have a lot of respect for it. It's like pushing the human body to about the limits of its capacity sometimes. They go through this period where they're really nauseated. They have a terrible bad, headache. Their body feels like it's melting or it's achy or it's tensing up. All that lactic acid buildup just is killing them, like hurting, burning, miserable. And they have to keep running and keep running and keep running. Wow, that takes tenacity. I know a person who had a really severe heart attack. And as a nurse, I understand what it takes. It takes significant life change. If you're going to repair your heart and strengthen your heart, yeah, you have to change how you eat. Someone who's been drinking, or they drink a lot of pop or a lot of sweet stuff, or iced tea every single day, tons of it, both caffeine and sugar. They eat like a fiend. They're 100 pounds overweight. Their heart is a wreck. And suddenly, they have to change the way they eat, the way they drink, and the way they're living, so they have to start exercising. Whoa, that's really tough. A person has to have a level of tenacity to make all these significant changes and give up what they've always loved and the ways they've always fed or taken care of their life appetites. Yeah, man, this is a challenging thing. And yet, it has to happen. I don't know if any of you know this, but if not, you can look it up because you'll find the details. Bill Clinton had a major cardiac event, and it scared him so much that he radically changed his life. So I invite you to look at photographs of him when he was in the White House or shortly thereafter, and how he looks today in the 2020s. That man, with tenacity, determined that he was going to live and he was going to change the course of his life and his health, and he did what it took. In your child's life, if they easily give up, if they quickly quit, if they just whine about it and complain about it and refuse to do it because it's just so hard, you probably need to help them develop some tenacity. And it's possible. As you know, my kids are as different as night and day. And since I've been privileged to spend quite a lot of time with them in recent weeks and months, it's been truly driven home to me how radically different the two of them are. When they were very small, I tried to be fair and raise them in the same way. By the time they were about 5 and 6, I understood that there was no way that was working. I knew it before then, but I was really smacked upside the face with it because of an event. That those two kids are not the same, and it wasn't working out to try to treat them the same, to raise them the same, to discipline or instruct them in just the same way. Yeah, that wasn't happening. So my one son, who was a much more prone to quitting kind of person, took a whole different kind of approach for me. I want you to know that you can, in fact, change your approach alter your approach. Um, look at your child as an individual and help them to develop tenacity, even if they're prone to being a quitter. We're going to go to what we talked about yesterday, and that is reward. Often, for a person who's prone to quitting, they've got to have small incremental rewards all along the way. It's a really big deal because you've got to help them to see the value of continuing with the work it takes to meet a goal. Here's what that looks like. So my child was taking piano lessons. And of course, when you first start, it's kind of fun. And then you're like, Mom, I really want to play this. And I'm playing all these kids' songs and I hate this. And when is it going to get better? And I think I'm going to quit. Oh, and daily practice. You have to practice your scales. You have to practice all this music. You're like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. For an undisciplined person, for a person without a lot of tenacity or determination, yeah, that's a really hard thing to do. And so you have to have incremental rewards. And so that reward system can be as simple as you can have 15 minutes on the PlayStation, because I didn't even own a television set. I know y'all think that's radical, but that's why my kids are the people that they are. I didn't have a television set, but I did have a PlayStation. So they were only allowed to play it on weekends. And during the week, yeah, that never happened. So one of the rewards was you can have 15 minutes on the PlayStation. That was amazing to him. As I shared just in yesterday's episode, sometimes those rewards were things like going swimming, going ice skating in the winter, going fishing, going on a picnic. We really love to go on picnics. Going to the park in the middle of the week, which with me working a couple jobs and sometimes going to nursing school, that was a huge expenditure of time and energy for me to break up the day and give them that reward. And they understood that. So they really got the value of that reward. It wasn't some chintzy thing like a Cracker Jack toy. It really actually meant something. And of course, there were things like we would play games because often in the week, again, it was a matter of time. And so it would be, okay, well, tonight we'll actually sit down and play a game of rummy, or we'll play Yahtzee, we'll play Uno. That time together, because that son of mine, his primary love language is time spent. So that time with him was a huge reward in his life, and it kept him going. So you can use an incremental reward system to teach your child the value of tenacity, of keeping on going, of hanging on when it is so tough to hang on. My challenge question for you today is, how tenacious are you? Because if you give up so easily, if you're not willing to hang on, if you aren't willing to do the hard work, it's going to be really tough, if not nearly impossible, to teach your child that level of tenacity. I'm going to describe to you a thing that you may not perceive of as being tenacious, but it truly is. And that is mathematics. Most little kids can go 1, 2, 3 by the time they're 3, or count from 1 to 10 when they're 5 years old at least. Some kids can count from 1 to 100 by the time they're 5. That depends upon the tenacity of the parent, because how much have you counted with them? Or how much have you had them watch Sesame Street or some program where they're seeing the counting to crazy, outrageous numbers? If you are very tenacious in helping your child understand math, they will. Even if you aren't, though, in school, the school system is tenacious in teaching math to kids. And it's a good thing, because we all use math every single day of our lives. So kids start off learning how to count and with number recognition. Within just 6 to 8 months, they're learning how to add. Then they learn how to subtract. They learn how to multiply. They learn their multiplication tables. Then they learn how to divide. They start looking at fractions. They start looking at equations. They start to understand relationships between numbers. Pretty soon they're looking at things like pre-algebra, algebra, geometry, shapes, angles, relationships, trigonometry, calculus, statistics, chemistry, tons of math and chemistry. The school is incrementally and tenaciously teaching math to a young person. Let's look at language. Whether you know it or not, you are teaching language to your child. Whether you teach them in baby talk or you teach them in plain English, whether you teach them with a simplified vocabulary or a more complex one, you are teaching language to your child. And most children tenaciously pursue language because they want to make their needs known. Much less their wants. They want their wants to be known too. If you don't believe me, stand in Walmart and listen to a 3-year-old. I want this! I want this now! Oh yeah, they're very committed to making their needs and wants known. And that involves language. And so they learn language. They learn how to utilize words. They learn construction. They really do. They are tenaciously acquiring the knowledge of language. Usually by the time they're 5 or 6 years old, they pretty much have it down. You need to let your child know. You've done this before. I go, no, I didn't. Oh, yes, you did. You learned how to talk. You learned how to walk. You fell down 1,000 times. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times a day for months. And then you got up and by goodness, you walked. And look at you now. You can walk, you can run, you can ride a bike. Talk about a skill that for many kids takes tenacity. Riding a bike is one of those. Getting your balance and having that sense of motion of many parts of your body. Yeah, kids do have tenacity. They just might not know it. And you need to acknowledge it for them and say, okay, now you're coming up against this. And this is really challenging. This is really difficult. This is so hard. And you're like, no, I can't do this. But I want to assure you that you can. Yes, you can. Because look at all the other things you've learned. Look at all the other skills you've gained. You definitely can. This is a very big deal because as they're, I'm going to say between 5 and 10, and they have so many new skills to learn. And sometimes they may not be as adept at some of those skills. They may not be as naturally bent towards some of those. Some of those are going to take plain old tenacity to learn. And you need to tell them, oh, you can definitely do this. You can. All right, so I've kept it pretty much in the sphere of learning. Now I'm going to put it into a whole nother place. I'm going to put it into a place of emotional strength. You know, not all human beings are as emotionally strong as others. Really, some people are just more frail. I mean emotionally frail. They feel more insecure. They're practically born that way. I had a couple of friends that way when I was a kid. They don't have much confidence. They don't feel good about themselves or their place in the world. It isn't because someone beat them up. It wasn't because someone was abusive or insulting. They just are a little more emotionally tender or frail. You need to teach them some tenacity. You can face criticism. You can face people who are not very nice or kind of mean or who hurt your feelings. You can develop emotional tenacity. And you assure them that though it hurts, so you do not deny the reality of their feelings, you can still go back to school. You can still handle standing in the locker room. You can still be with those people who are not so nice to you. They don't have to be your best buds, but they're in the classroom. You've got to be able to develop that emotional tenacity to stand it, to take care of yourself, to withstand it. It doesn't change that it hurts. And trust me, when you come home and you know you need a really big hug or you're going to cry about this or you're going to journal about how hard this is, I'm not going to deny any of that to you. But you can build some emotional strength and the tenacity to go to school every single day and handle this. I'm going to give you a difficult illustration. Because I was divorced, at one point my son said, "Mom, I really want to go live with Dad." Well, he didn't know all the implications of what that meant. I knew a lot more than he did. I tried really hard for about 6 months to dissuade him from that. But no, he was determined, and he was a teenager, and this is what I said to him. There are things you don't know, and you're going to find out. And I'm not telling them to you. I'm not front-loading you. You'll have to learn and make decisions on your own. But I'm telling you, It's going to take a certain amount of tenacity on your part to stick it out, and you're not coming back here for a year. We're not going to play this revolving door syndrome. Oh, I'm mad at mom, I'm going to live with dad. Oh, I'm mad at dad, I'm going to live with mom. We're not doing that. And actually, he wasn't going because he was angry. He was going because he didn't feel like he knew his dad very well, and he wanted to spend time with his dad. And he was having a challenging time at school that he was really struggling to overcome, but which he had not shared with me at that time. I said, okay, I'm going to let you go. And I did let him go. And because I had talked to him a lot, he did hold on with really strong determination and tenacity. But a number of things happened that were horrific, which I will not go into detail about. He found out the hard way some things he wished he didn't know. So he met us for vacation that summer in Charleston, and he said, Mom, I need to leave there. I really do. I'm coming back to your house. I said, well, you haven't been there for a year. No, I mean it. I'm coming back. I said, no. I mean it. You aren't. And I said, you need to go back and you need to have this discussion and you need to work through it. And in a month or so, if you can't get through it, then you call me. Well, he ended up coming back to me in less time than a year because of the severity of some of the things he was facing. But he has shared with me that sense that I gave him of the necessity of commitment and the tenacity that he was going to need to get through it. And it was a really, really awful, awful time for him. It had a lot of tough challenges for him. But, it developed such strength and such tenacity in him. And he knows it too. He said, so many of the difficult things in my life that I have faced as time has gone on, I will go back to that time. That I had already made up my mind and my heart that I was going to stick through it, no matter how tough it all was, and I was going to do it well, and I was going to do it gracefully. That's what I always go back to. Yes, I got through that, and I can get through this next thing. Your child needs to understand some things in life are very hard. I mean, just about rip out your hair, scream loudly. I mean, really horribly difficult. I know it. I know that's the same thing that's true for some of us as adults. But you know what? You can do it. I'm going to stand here and support you. And inside of yourself, you have a level of inner strength. And I know that you can do it. And of course, for me, one of the strongest points of all is, and God is going to go through it with you, and He is always going to be willing to help you, even beyond the capacity that you have yourself. So I want you to really and truly instill into your child tenacity. I want you to nurture that trait. Because, honey, in this life, sometimes we just got to have some internal guts to do what needs to be done. And that is tenacity. It's like a bulldog that's never going to let go of that bone, no matter how hard you fight them for it. They're gonna get it done. I thank you so much for being with me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. Please leave me a comment or a question. I would love to hear from you. Have a great day today. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.